Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where I share inspirational tech startup stories and learn how technology is transforming our lives and indeed our world every day. And today's guest has an adventure story to share. Marek Zmysłowski is a Polish-born entrepreneur and executive focused on online businesses in frontier and emerging markets. And he is also the author of Chasing Black Unicorns, How Building the Amazon of Africa put me on the Interpol's most wanted list. In a nutshell, Chasing Black Unicorns is an engaging story of this entrepreneur who scales big businesses in Africa. And his experiences not only show the behind-the-scenes business building for anyone on the exotic continent, but also investor relations and that fight against big competition. But it is a story that could one day be made into a movie. But rather than reveal any spoilers this early on, I want to get him straight onto the podcast. So buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Barcelona, where Marek is waiting to speak with us now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Cool. Thanks for having me, Neil. So my name is Marek Zmysłowski. I'm a Polish-born entrepreneur, although most of my professional life I have spent in a region called Sub-Saharan Africa, which is mainly represented by Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. And for the last eight years, I've been building their different online businesses with some extreme adventures happening to me on the way. On the positive side, we were able to build a big e-commerce group, which ended up doing an IPO on New York Stock Exchange. But on the other side, I also had extremely negative adventures, including being even wanted by Nigerian police for for potential frauds as a way of fighting with my business partners. And all those extremely positive and negative adventures I put together in the form of a book, which I recently published called Chasing Black Unicorns, which kind of sums up the big portion of my business life.
And one of the things I love doing on this Daily Tech podcast is sharing startup stories and journeys in the tech industry. But like you said, yours is much more a story of extreme adventures. But before we go into that, I've got to try and find out a little bit more about where this all began, because you're a former snowboard instructor and hold a racing license in motorsport. So how did you end up as a tech entrepreneur to begin with?
Yeah, that's a funny story. So I was actually born and raised in the northwest part of Poland, and we were living by the sea, not really by the mountains. But in high school, I really fell in love, still also in primary school. So before high school, I fell in love in skateboarding and then snowboarding. And then I would spend so much time in the mountains. And just after high school, when I started studying, doing the snowboarding lessons for rich kids during winter was actually a way for me to make some extra money that then I was able to spend when I was studying. So that was just a side gig, really, which was connected to my passion. Although, to be honest, teaching people how to snowboard is extremely stressful because you either get it or you don't get it, and I had no patience. And the racing license kind of came a couple years later. That was also another passion that I never was able to kind of realize earlier, because to do this part of sport, you really have to have either a big sponsors or just your own money. And I remember always watching racing or rallies. When I was a kid, I was just watching them on the TV. And then just at some point I decided, okay, I want to do this. I want to check this on my goals list. So I did that racing license in Poland. I think that was like 2010 or something like that. Took part in a couple rallies, and that was it. I was like, I don't think I want to do this for long term. It's super scary. But I got so on to another adventure that I wanted to cross off my goals list.
It just seems no matter what you do or where you do it, you end up on some kind of adventure, because your book, Chasing Black Unicorns, has been described as Silicon Valley meets Indiana Jones. So can you tell the listeners about your autobiography and how you actually ended up on Interpol's most wanted list as a result?
Yeah, so Let me just tell you like how I wanted to write the book. Obviously, I had this ambition to write a book at some point in my life. Everyone probably has this, but I thought it's going to be 50 years from now when I'm already old, hopefully rich and famous, and I will be able to pass on that wise wisdom. Then when I was moving to Africa in late 2012, that's another story why I did that. I remember I was looking for literature that allows me to learn more about running a business in this continent. So I was looking for business literature really, and there was none of that. There were some books written by university professors, books about macroeconomics and the local problems of each African country, which has a lot of knowledge, but there are mainly theoretical books. And you have books like guys who would drive a motorbike through the desert. So extremely interesting book, but nothing about business. And I figured maybe I'm onto something. I'm moving to Nigeria right now. I'm going to spend the next couple of years building some online businesses there. That's how it's going to look like. So my knowledge might be very interesting for this particular niche. So that's kind of stayed in my head. And then when I got myself into the trouble, and I'm going to tell you what had happened, I remember having to spend a night in jail, and I actually thought I'm going to be extradited to Nigeria, and many bad things would happen to me. I remember telling to myself, if I get out of this, my business book has just become much more interesting because it also has these criminal adventures on top of it. And essentially, my book is a business book, but the business insights and the business knowledge and all the learnings I got from Africa are kind of, smuggled in a way in between those adventures that happened to me through those almost 10 years in Africa and before in Poland. Poland was also a crazy chapter because it was also really an emerging economy, especially in tech. And all those adventures were either crazy or funny or scary, and they kind of caught the reader's attention. And once I have the reader's attention, I can also pass some business knowledge. So that was the concept of the book. Partial biography just to get your attention, but most importantly, a business book. And when it comes to how I ended up essentially being on Interpol most wanted list, which is, I know it sounds crazy every time I come back to the memory, is that you have to let me just quickly give you a background story about what Interpol is and how it works, because we mostly, I only knew what Interpol is from the movies. Essentially, it's a global police that its responsibility is to transfer the knowledge about criminals between countries. So it's a very noble institution, and it's a great thing to do, because you don't want a criminal from one country just move to another country and starting clean without anyone knowing anything about him, because that would be very bad. We really live in a global village with the technology now and transport and so on. So it's great that this type of institutions operate. The problem is how they operate, and Interpol works a little bit like Facebook or YouTube, really. More than 140 countries in the world are members of Interpol. And if a country is a member of Interpol, then almost every police station, as long as they have access to the internet and they have access to Interpol system, they can just, come up with a local arrest warrant in any way they want it, and they can just immediately put it into the system, and it's now all over the place, all over the world. So it's a little bit like Facebook. Imagine someone has posted something with you on the photo. Maybe that person doesn't have the right to post that photo. Anyone can do this, but good luck now going to Facebook and appealing to Facebook and making Facebook put it down if that person doesn't want to do it. Which is similar case to Interpol, because Interpol treats countries like Nigeria, Iraq, Afghanistan, Turkey the same way they treat Switzerland, United States, Germany, and any other countries. And you could probably imagine that the democracy and the corruption and the rule of law in all the countries in the world is not the same, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, Interpol has become a tool of abuse, both to deal with your political opponents. That's one side of the story, but also business opponents, because essentially you can bribe someone in a frontier country like Nigeria. You can bribe a policeman to issue a fake arrest warrant and put it into the system, because now that person that is the target of this arrest warrant is not able to move at all anywhere in the world, because anywhere I would travel, I would be stopped at any airport, every police checkpoint, etc. And I would be at best risk being stopped for a couple of days until the country figures out what to do with me. Do they believe that arrest warrant from Nigeria and they send me to Nigeria, or they don't believe it and they let me go? Either way, it's a lot of stress and many days of, just being stopped and kept in jail cell for a couple of days. So that kind of stops you from a possibility of doing any type of international business. That takes away your freedom of movement until you appeal and prove that this Nigerian arrest warrant is totally fake. But that's the whole point of it, is to make you deal with it. And sometimes you prefer to do what these people want you to do. And essentially, in my case, it was about me giving back shares in my Nigerian company almost for nothing. And in order to force me to do that was to use that arrest warrant. And I was one of those stupid or stubborn guys that decided to actually go the legal route and fight this in the legal way. It took 2 years, and I ended up paying more for all the lawyers than the value of the company that they wanted and my shares they wanted from me. But I did it the legal way, the right way, and that's also in the book.
And you're no longer on that Interpol list?
No, not anymore. When you Google my name, you go on the Interpol site, you can't find me anymore.
And are there any other highlights you can share for the listeners about your life?
Obviously, one of the most amazing highlights was the whole point of me moving to Nigeria, because back then, that was the year 2012, I have spent a couple of years of doing very interesting businesses in Poland. I joined the financial sector in the early 2000s. So that was like in the middle of the biggest financial boom in Poland. We made some big money and I was only 20 something. And then so I joined the financial broker company. I was like employee number 5 or 7, I don't remember now. And when I was leaving the company after 3 years, there was a couple thousands of those brokers. The company has grown so amazingly. And then 2008 came, and obviously everyone lost all their money because the crisis came. So that was really my first big million of earnings and then of debts. And then I somehow managed to pay my debts back because I got myself into so-called startups. I was hired as an intern in one of those technological startups in Poland. And because the startup was sold to another company and I wasn't working for salary, I was getting some salary, but I also got some shares. Then the shares was able to pay me back the debt from the financial sector. So I was like, oh my God, I'm in love with this new thing called startup. And that's what really defined the next couple of years of my life. But because I never liked competition and I always liked to go into market when not too many people want to open a business, I was always kind of drawn into very strange sectors. I mean, Nigeria and Africa and online business was one of them. But in Poland, we have built together with my co-founders, we have built the first online marketplace for the funeral sector, which is on its own a very crazy thing to do. But again, we wanted to enter an online business where not too many people our age with our technological skills wanted to go to as well, because everyone wanted to build a second Facebook or second MySpace back then. No one was thinking about disrupting the funeral business. So that was our strategy of keeping the potential competition away, and that was also a crazy thing for us because unfortunately a lot of companies in the funeral business, because it's not a nice business to be in, to be honest. Those type of sectors kind of pull in shady characters, which we had to deal with as well. At some point, we were getting death threats for doing this business because we were disrupting the status quo and the monopoly of certain companies in certain regions, which is also in the book. And then obviously, at some point in my life, I figured I've been spent all my life in Poland. I feel like I'm missing something, both on the international business side. And also, I never finished university, so I felt like I'm missing some part of a proper business education. And I didn't want to go back to university really, but I wanted to work for an international corporation, which is like a university or even better. And if you want to be a consultant or an executive in a multinational corporation, you probably want to graduate from Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, and then maybe go to McKinsey, Ernst and Young, and get your experience there, and then go to the corporation. But if your ambition is to be an amazing entrepreneur, you want to work for one of those cool online companies like Alibaba in Asia, Amazon in the States, or Rocket Internet in Europe, which is like top 5 of biggest e-commerce groups in the world. And I figured I want to work for these guys from Rocket Internet from Germany, at least for a year, because I want to learn from them. And I just sent a CV because I said, I've had some experience of running different businesses in Poland. I come from financial sector, but I want to work for you guys at least for a year. I consider this as my MBA with you. Can you take me? And they did. They sent me to Nigeria. So it wasn't really my idea at first. They just needed some managers to go to sub-Saharan Africa to start their businesses there. And I thought they chose me because I'm so good. Maybe that was part of the decision, but also not too many managers from Germany, where Rocket Internet is based, at that time were willing to just drop whatever they were doing and go to Nigeria. And I was at the stage of my life when I didn't have much to lose. I didn't have a family yet. I was very young. I was 20 something. So I was like, hey, what the hell? Let's do this.
And am I right in saying that all of the book's profits are also going to be used to support impactful charity initiatives in these undeveloped regions of the world? Is that right?
Yeah, that is correct. So I didn't want this to look like I'm now publishing the book to make money out of it, because that was never my goal. So I wanted this to make a statement. And also another reason was that I'm writing about many positive stuff that happened to me in Nigeria and Kenya and South Africa, but also very negative stuff. And I don't want anyone to accuse me of talking bad PR about this continent. I think there's way too much bad stereotypes being enforced about Africa. So I wanted to really enforce the positive stereotype, because I actually now have the legitimacy to say how it really is, and that it's worth it to move to Africa, do business with Africa, invest in Africa, whatever your position is. And that book helps me do it, because it gives me a platform to speak, and I get invited to many conferences and so on. And I figured I want this to have a more positive impact. So all the money from the book, as well, all the money from all my speaking engagements related to the book, go into a charity. And that's another story, because when I wanted to find a charity to put the profits from the book to, I kind of approach the issue just like I approach startups. I'm an investor. I want to invest in a startup. So show me your business model, show me your return on investment, show me how you can become sustainable, show me the long-term effects of your operations. And when you approach this NGO sector as an investor that really wants your money to be spent well, you're gonna face a lot of disappointments. Let's just put it mildly, and the way NGOs are managed and how they spend the money, it's a mess. So I decided to, in the end, open my own foundation, because on one, it's very small, but thanks to the fact that it's small, there's still a lot of passion, and you can monitor everything directly, and the money just spent the better way, because the more people involved, the more potential of inefficiency in the best scenario, and simple stealing in the worst scenario. So I do believe that it's better if there's way more small NGOs than one big one, which is also what made me and my girlfriend Jeritza to open this together. Jeritza is an actress, TV host. She also has her own platform, and we wanted to do this together. She also comes from a very humble beginnings from Dominican Republic, so she has lived that life of being raised in an underprivileged regions, and she made me really build that proper strategy of helping especially females at a special age, in special areas and so on. And there's this whole philosophy behind the foundation.
And I am passionate about sharing tech startup stories and scenes from outside of Silicon Valley. And you are one of Poland's most respected internet entrepreneurs, and do a lot of traveling and seeing firsthand how technology can change the world for the better. But I'm curious, what kind of things have you seen? And are there any particular regions or countries where you're seeing technology transform the fortunes of a country?
Oh, I would say that you can see it now across the board, really.
Yeah.
Because now this is the time when the technology is giving the chance for new fortunes to be created. I mean, that's what you see on the founders side. The founders that have built those technology businesses are becoming extremely rich. But you can also see that inclusion happening because those founders also bring a lot of employees that they were given shares, that they've made a lot of money together with these companies. And then the jobs creation. I think that there is inclusion on so many levels, and you need the technology change to include the new people being able to make new money. Because if the technology didn't change at all, then you wouldn't really have a chance for new people to make any money. So that's how first big fortunes were made when we discovered oil. And then obviously nothing much happened after it. The rich just became richer. Then you had the discovery, the second industrial revolution with the steam engine. Then you had maybe hardware, first proper hardware for computers in the 60s, then software, then the internet revolution, and so on and so on. Every time there's a big technology disruption, there's a chance for people that were all modest, that had modest lives before, to become rich very fast and also pull people from their environment together with them and create new employment. That's how I look at it. Maybe in a simplistically, maybe in a too optimistic way. And at the same time, you see that, especially in Africa, it seems like Africa was a little bit too late for the globalization changes. Like what made India so powerful and grow so strong with the with the centralization of customer service, for example, or China being able to take advantage of becoming the world's hub for manufacturing, or India, for example, for software or customer service, among many other sectors. I'm against simplifying this. Africa was kind of too late to the game because they were not able to build the infrastructure fast enough to be able to compete with China on the manufacture part, or with India on the software part, and a couple of other sectors. And again, I'm comparing a continent to a country. Obviously, Africa is not a country. It's a continent of 54 countries and hundreds of ethnic groups and thousands of tribes. But because their economies are weaker, if you want to compare to India, you kind of have to compare the whole continent to one big country. But now with what's happening now with Africa, catching up with the infrastructure, the banking systems are much more advanced than in Europe. I can guarantee you that. With the internet connection becoming much better in Lagos, in Nigeria, in Nairobi, internet is faster than San Francisco. I can guarantee you that. With us now becoming the global village, it seems like now Africa has a proper chance to become a global leader in something. For example, in fintech, so in fintech products, there's many fintech companies from South Africa or Nigeria now expanding into Brazil or expanding into India. And then you have, for example, blockchain technology being able to be implemented on a much bigger scale in Africa first. Because I'm not a blockchain expert or a fan really, but I see what's happening is that in Europe or in the States you have all those old legacy systems in the banking, and if you want to introduce something new, there's always this defense of the status quo, and you don't really have that in Africa. So you may see a lot of innovations actually in B2B technology happening from Africa, since they build something from scratch. And sometimes it's better and faster to build a new house than to renovate the old one.
And there is a great deal of uncertainty at the moment throughout the world. So I've got to ask, what is it that makes you hopeful about the future and the role that technology will continue to play in that future too?
Show me a period of the world when there was certainty. Obviously, we're able to see now so many problematic things, so many issues that so many countries in the world are dealing with. Was it better before? Well, definitely, everything is much more televised now with Twitter, with social media, with everyone having a phone. And it seems like everything is escalating, but maybe it's just getting filmed much more often. And we just know more what is happening in our neighboring countries. Obviously, the inequalities, the financial inequalities, which is so visible, are getting bigger. But when you really look at the facts of the average of life expectancy, life quality, and so on across the globe, and it's never been better. The there are also problems with climate change and so on. But at the same time, it seems like finally the issues of ecology have gotten into mainstream, and I believe that this time they're here to stay. And once we shift the global attention to these problems, I do believe that technology will allow us to. Technology improvements combined with people bigger consciousness of how to live their lives, that combination of both can really help us solve those current problems. I mean, you have to be. In the end, I am optimistic because I don't see no other options. Do you expect me now to just figure out, oh my God, the world is going to an end? I'm selling everything and I'm moving to a hut in the forest. I don't think that's going to help anyone.
And before you came on today, I did a little bit of research about you. And one of the things that I absolutely love is your goal is simply to leave this world in a slightly better shape than it was that when you first arrived here. So is there anything you'd like to share about your future work that will tie in with that goal too, before I let you go?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to make money first. And I think it's because you need the money to have stability. Only after you feel more or less stable, as much stable and as much safe as you can feel, that's where you can really allow yourself to have different goals. Like, you can't really blame someone struggling for survival or being hungry every day to care about other things, right? So it's not like I always had this goal, but at some point, once I felt like, okay, I think I feel pretty safe now, and I'm more or less accomplished in some other areas. Now I still want to do business because I still feel that I haven't even achieved 5% of all my business goals. But now I also want to be involved in this type of businesses that not only make money, but also, maybe not make the world a better place, because that's too cliche, but at least not screw it up more than it already is. Because if you keep it the same way than it was, then it means that at least you achieve sustainability, and that's a success itself. So for the last couple of years, I've really been focused on building different online businesses in sub-Saharan Africa, like e-commerce, like online travel, because I kind of felt like, you're not only building an online service that is needed, actually, but you're also, providing employment and so on. And that's a good influence in itself. Instead of coming up with another mobile application in Europe and figure out how to steal more money from millennial credit card. But now I'm also looking at other type of sectors that also make me as a person and as an entrepreneur grow. So I've looked into renewables. I've invested in a Swedish startup from solar business that is now has ambitions to grow really, really globally, because I feel like, now there's a lot of good stuff potentially that can be done in the renewable energy sector that not only allows you to make money as an entrepreneur, it's obviously important for you, but also make have a small part in building sustainability in the way we produce and utilize energy. Obviously, renewables itself are not ideal, but it's a great step forward from coal and from fossil fuels.
Excellent. And before I let you go, if anyone wants to find out more information about you, follow you online and check out your book, Chasing Black Unicorns, How Building the Amazon of Africa Put You on the Interpol Most Wanted List, can you just point them in the direction of where they can find everything online?
Sure. Thank you so much for allowing me to share that. So it's so hard to pronounce my Polish name on air, but my book title is much easier. So you can just go to chasingblackunicorns.com. And it's like a hub for all my activity, including the foundation, information about the book, TED Talks, and so on. So and also my social media. So just go to chasingblackunicorns.com.
Fantastic. Well, on this podcast, I think I spoke to over 1,200 tech leaders so far who've shared startup stories, journeys in tech, but nobody, and I repeat, nobody has had an adventure in tech like you have. So I'd love to stay in touch and learn about more of your future adventures. But more than anything, just a big thank you for joining with me today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation, Neil. All the best to you too. And also all the best to everyone listening. Stay safe, guys, in those very strange times.
What a great story of this Polish-born entrepreneur and executive focused on online businesses in frontier and emerging markets. And his book, Chasing Black Unicorns, How Building the Amazon of Africa Put Me on the Interpol Most Wanted List, is an entertaining read and further proof, if it was needed, that real life can be so much more stranger and exciting than any fictional book or movie that you might see. And he also co-founded Jumia Travel, Africa's biggest hotel booking portal listed on the New York Stock Exchange, and a part of the Jumia Group, and hotelonline.co too, which is another travel technology company. And in 2014, he was chosen as one of the 10 most important people in tech by IT News Africa magazine. And he's also a lead mentor at Google's Launchpad and World Bank's Excel Africa program. But strip back all his achievements and we're still left with just a great guy and someone that I'd love to go on a tech adventure with one day. But please share with me your thoughts, your opinions about anything that we've talked about today by simply emailing me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. My website is techblogwriter.co.uk if you'd like to work with me, or indeed browse through over 1,200 interviews. I'll be waiting here to take your message. If not, don't worry, I'll still be here tomorrow with another guest and we'll do it all again. So a big thank you for listening, and until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.